I hope everyone's doing well. Today, I want to talk about Green's essay podcast, Academic Decathlon, and talk about how it can be used well and some things to avoid as you're doing the narrative essay assignments for my class. You can see that I'm breaking it down into good, great, bad, and ugly. I don't think that those are the things that go with Green's essays. I think his essays or his podcasts are fine. I do think, though, that there are some things in there that, if done poorly, will turn your essay into something a little bit ugly. So let's work to avoid those things. One of the good things, and perhaps even the great things, Green does in almost every one of the podcasts, every one of the essays, is he has a big idea. In this case, his big idea is a result. The memory still holds me together. For those of you who are Star Trek fanatics, you recognize this scene from the Death of Spock film where he transfers his memory into McCoy, his essence into McCoy. And it was those memories who still that held Spock together and allowed him to be resurrected in a later film. But the idea of memories holding us together don't have to be as dramatic as that. They don't have to be as dramatic as the ones Green discusses throughout much of the book. But even if they're not dramatic, memories do hold us together, and I think that's an important thing to think about. And as you're writing your narrative, is there a big idea you want to dis- you want to work through, you want to discuss in your essay? It's also, I think, important to think about sometimes the big idea is one that you borrow. He's got the Terry Tempest Williams book. And when one of us says, look, there's nothing out there, what we are really saying is, I cannot see. Not that there's nothing there, it's that you cannot see. And perhaps you want to make a connection, as I did here with the Henry David Thoreau quotation. It's not what you look at that matters, it's what you see. How did the experience help Green see? And what does your experience do with your thought process? What did you learn from that experience? What new thing can you now see? Don't steal Green's words. Don't steal Terry Tempest Williams' words. Don't steal Henry David Thoreau's words. It doesn't have to have the word see in it. However, I'm saying this experience could make you think about a big idea, and it could change the way you view the world a little bit. And maybe you want to talk about the big idea as part of the essay, as part of what you learned. Have threads. Green's got rivers running throughout this thing, all over the place. There's mention of various rivers. Todd is featured at several points throughout the, the essay. His C student success gets woven throughout the essay. And unfortunately, Zima gets woven throughout the essay. I will say that his love of Zima makes me think less of Green as a human being. I'm a little bit sad about that because he seems like a heck of a guy. But Zima is not something that people should be proud of having consumed. One of the things I think Green does a little bit too much here is he tosses in the cliches. Rivers meander. Rivers get you from there to here. And Eartha Kitt, one of the great Catwomen of the 1960s Batman series, and an accomplished performer outside of that role where it was all campy. She had this statement about the river is constantly turning and bending. You never know where it's going. And she was saying that decades ago. And she was borrowing it from somebody who said it decades before. Don't give way to cliches. Rivers as a way to get from there to here, meaning that you stay on your own path and that you're on the right track, is such an overused meme. And I'll use the term meme here. It has just become a cliche. And to give you another example, Tolkien has it in his book, and when you talk about rivers keep flowing, again, it is just a cliched image, a cliched metaphor. Avoid the cliches, please. Please avoid the cliches. I'll phrase it this way. If you've heard it 1,000 times, if you've heard it 500 times, if you've heard it 100 times, don't put it in the paper. Remember, your assignment is only 2 to 5 pages, so your narrative is one story. If Green were writing for this assignment, he could talk about his friendship with Todd. He could talk about Todd and the SAT. He could talk about the academic decathlon. He could talk about COVID. He could talk about the trip to the river. He had enough time to go 80 and 65 in wide open spaces. Yours is a much more limited space. You're down in that 35 mile an hour driving through the suburbs zone. Focus on the prompt, focus on the point of your narrative, and pick one narrative, one story, one conflict, not 6. And to just give you a couple of samples, and this is the last part of this one here. In both my Kindle and my hard copy, there's a section, there are some breaks in here. I believe I'm talking about the Kindle pages. I might be talking about the hard copy pages, but anyway, 130 to 134 before the break. Obviously, you're going to have to condense it because 4 pages from a book is way more than 4 pages typed. And his discussion of the current river, beginning with these days, I think would work fine. And when he talks about Todd, that paragraph would work as long as it was expanded with more details about the academic decathlon. So there are 3 samples you can look at to get you started about what would work as a narrative essay in this assignment. If you have questions, please ask. Once again, I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I hope this assignment is causing a bit of thought and a bit of pleasure at the same time. Hope to see you in the next class period.